can yeah, and there'll be polls, so please answer the polls so that I can get a sense of who's in the room, and then I can adapt what I want to talk about in a way that is useful for you. I don't want to just talk, and then you're like, okay, how does this help me? It has to be valuable to you as well. So yeah, please engage, answer questions, ask questions. There's a Q&A tab. So if you have a question, ask the question in the Q&A tab so I can see it. I may not see it in the comments, but I would definitely see it in the Q&A tab. All right, cool. So let's get into it. I'm going to launch a poll first. I want to know who's in the room. And the question is about what is your current work situation? Because I want to know whether I'm talking to people who are working on a team currently or looking for a job or interning or freelancing. Can you see the poll?
Not yet from my end. Please, if you can from your end, please feel free to unmute your mic and respond or type in the chat box.
Okay, I'm seeing responses already.
Awesome.
There are about 16 people excluding me and Olatosin, so I want to see more responses. I'm only seeing 2 responses so far. So let's let's respond to the poll, please, so we can move on. Okay, I'm seeing more responses now. I can only see 3 responses. We can't move on until I have like at least 8 responses because there are 19 people here. So let's go so that we can continue. Or you can't, if you can't see the poll, can you put in the chat if you can? Okay, I'm seeing people saying yes, they can see the poll. So please respond to the poll so that I can make this useful for you. Okay, I'm seeing that there are a few people freelancing. I'm saying yes, so please respond because I'm not seeing the response in the poll. If you people are freelancing, if you people are job searching, anyone working on a team already, whether interning or full-time. If you're on your, thank you, Don. If you're on your phone, you can, if you're joining on your phone, if you check the activities tab, you will see the poll in there. Okay, you can see other people are freelancing as well. Okay, so we're about split between freelancing and looking for a job. Is there anyone who already has a UX job? Anyone? All right, cool. This is good to know. So I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of helping you create your case studies, helping you how you can include other methods beyond the things that you've probably taught in your bootcamps or in your self-taught courses about usability testing, surveying, interviews, all those kinds of things, and how you can then incorporate these other approaches into your projects that you work on, whether as a freelancer, because I'm seeing many people are freelancing and many people are looking for UX job, and how you can incorporate all of those things together to help you with getting gigs or getting a job, whatever your situation is. So before I even go into that, how familiar are you with UX research? Like, what do you know about UX research? You can put it in the chat. Um, yeah, you can put in chat. What do you know about UX research? Or you can raise your hand if you want to unmute to speak.
Yeah, I think I can see a hand
Okay,
up.
Dorcas. All right, Dorcas, you can
Yes.
go ahead and unmute and share what you know about UX research. Are you there, Dorcas?
Let's
Anybody
feel
else
free
to
to
share?
unmute. Like I said, once the facilitator asks us to unmute, so speak, please feel free. Don't be shy, right? Hold you.
Anybody want to share? What do they know about UX research? I'm just curious. Dorcas, your hand is still up, but you're still muted. If you want to speak, you can speak now, or we'll move on. All right, cool. Let's move on. Okay, Jella says UX research is studying user interactions to help with the design of products and experiences. Cool. That's one part of it. To have a definition of UX research that I use, that is basically, it encompasses everything that you do to understand the user and their experiences, their behaviors, their needs. I see Esther says that the behaviors and their needs, and the pain points about them, really to understand the person or the people that you're building something for, so that you can build something that makes sense for them, that meets that actual need, something that they're actually able to use. And most people are familiar with primary research methods, where you are talking to customers, you're going to do your usability test, you're doing a survey. I have a bias about surveys, but that's a different conversation. But that is one way that we most people are familiar with. But there's another way as well that you can get insights about people, especially when you're working with the organization that is not yet like really sold on doing research, or in the case where you're looking for a job, you're not even working with any organization at all, and it may be hard to recruit. And secondary sources are also really great for exploring when you have some idea or you have no idea of what to work on, or what how to approach the problem, or what need to look at. You can use secondary sources to give you insights as to where to look at or where to move forward with. So secondary sources are basically places that are not from the people who you're building for necessarily. So insights from secondary sources are gathered from research done by other people. So somebody else may have done interviews before and published their findings and the insights that they have, or they may write a paper about it, or maybe somebody presents a case study that they did on YouTube based on or something. So those kinds of places are where you can find secondary insights from secondary sources. And it can be a from like organizations that do surveys about people's behaviors, people's attitudes, all those kinds of things. And like I said, exploratory research is a really good place to use secondary sources, because you're getting inspiration for what to do, what to explore, what questions to ask in your own primary research. And so this brings me to the question of, what is research even for, and how does this fit into? So research is really about reducing risk. You want to reduce the risk that you're building something that people don't need. You want to reduce the risk that you're building something that people can't use. You want to reduce the risk that if this thing launches that you're trying to create, it actually succeeds. It doesn't fail. People are able to figure out how to use it. I'm sure that you've seen you may have seen recently with the human AI pin thing that you're supposed to be able to talk to and you can project and everything, and how everyone has been like talking about how it's the worst product they've ever used, it's terrible, and sort of these things. I don't know what the human team did, like if they did any research, but I really doubt that if you did any kind of research, you would produce something in the end that everybody is calling the worst product that they have ever used. So research helps you avoid that kind of situation where people are like, this is the worst thing I've ever used, I don't want to use it again. Because when people's first interaction with your product or service or experience is bad, they are very, very unlikely to continue using it. And they're also very likely to tell other people not to use it. And that's not what you want. You want people to actually use your product, and you want to be meeting a need and then creating a solution in a way that is actually usable and useful. And what this means is, a way that you can look at it is to start with the assumptions that you have first. So for example, if I want to build an app that allows, if I'm like, if, and this is how many teams work, like people want to start from like, oh, we start with the user needs first. But in my almost 8 years of being a UX researcher and 10 years of working in tech, what I've seen is that people often have the solution in mind first. They're like, oh, we want to build an app to solve this problem, or we want to build a website that does this to do that. And the way to then move from that solution point to thinking about the problem is to say, what are the things that I'm assuming to be true that makes me want to build this? So if I say I want to build an app that allows people save money, and I want to, when I say app, I mean like I want to build a mobile app, like an Android app or an iOS app that allows people to save money. I'm making the assumption that people want to download an app. I'm making the assumption that people want to save money in this app. I'm making assumptions about people's money saving behaviors. And so it's important for you to think about, what are the assumptions I'm making that are foiling this decision that I want to make. And when you lay all of those things out, you can then say, how confident am I in this decision? And confidence is not based on I just feel like it's good, I feel like I'm great. It's based on research. Like you have hard facts that show that, okay, yes, this is it. And then you also need to look at the risk of being wrong. So imagine that in the example I gave about building an Android app to to allow people save money, you're making a very high, like the risk of, if you're wrong about the fact that people want to download an app, that's a very high risk because you've spent a lot of money and time building an app. So you need to also think about, compare like your level of confidence with the level of risk. And that's what you can see in this quadrant on the screen that shows you like when you have low confidence, low risk. So even as a UX researcher, I don't believe that you have to always do primary research all the time, because there are some times where you already have some insights from previous research, from industry trends, standards, industry research that you can use as a base to make some decisions, and you can go ahead. So if you have very high confidence from insights that you have gathered from previous research, whether internally or externally, and there's a low risk of being wrong, then you can go ahead and build that thing and measure it. And this is in a work setting. So as someone who is looking for a job, you want to work, you're looking for projects to work on, you want to build up case studies. Like, is it reasonable? Most of the time people want to do redesigns. Like, I want to redesign Twitter or Facebook or whatever, or I want to build a whole new app. But instead, the better thing to do, I think, is to look at the apps that you currently use. What is the assumption that you have about how to make a particular feature or experience within this app better? And then what are the assumptions that you're making about how to make this particular feature or whatever better? And then map those out, and that leads to research. And then you can now choose what method to use to answer the questions that you have about your assumptions. So this brings me to my next poll. How many of you are familiar with competitive analysis? I'm going to launch a poll now, and I want to see your responses. Also, the polls are anonymous, so your name will not show, like what you answer won't show. So don't be shy. I've heard of it, but I've never used it. I've used it. Okay. I want to see more responses so we can go along. We still have a bit more to cover, and there's like only 20 minutes left for the talking part. So let's speedily respond to the polls, please. And if you're not seeing the poll because you're on your phone, check in the activities tab. The activities tab is the one with like the triangle, the square, and the circle all together. So you'll be able to see the poll in there. And also please put your questions in the Q&A part, not in the chat. I may not see it if it's in the chat. So yeah. But to the poll, okay, many people have heard of it but never used it. Cool. So most times when people talk about competitive analysis, this is what they mean. They mean that you are looking at a product, and you're looking at competitor products, and you're looking at what features this one has that the other one does not have. But this is like a very base like type of competitive analysis. It doesn't really tell you what to do, because okay, this app has this thing but we don't have it. Okay, what then? Does this mean we should build it? But that's not a good way to make a decision about what to build or not, or what feature to add or not. And so you need to go a step further, because there's a lot more you can get. And this is where secondary sources can also come in. You can do so many things, but I want to focus on the part that is circled, which is the part that links to secondary sources, because the other approaches to competitive analysis are primary methods. So secondary methods, which is now the four that I'm going to look at today. There are many others, but there are four that I want to look at today. And the first one is social media. Think about it. The last time you had a bad experience with the product or a service or maybe an Instagram vendor, where did you share it on? And you can put the answers to that in the chat. When the last time you had a bad experience with something, whether a product, an app, a physical product, a vendor, maybe you went to a restaurant, whatever, where did you share that bad experience on? Responses, please. We need to move fast.
Yeah. You
See,
can
yeah.
even for this, I mean, brief questions, you can just raise your hand and then say it, right? If typing will take a lot of
Yeah, if
time.
typing is taking time, just raise your hand and then I can call you and then you can respond. So I'm saying Google reviews, social media. Yeah, so we're gonna get to reviews as well. Social media, Google reviews, maybe your WhatsApp group with your friends, maybe if you're on Reddit or something, like all these places, people share everything on social media. And people are sharing what they like, what they don't like, what is annoying, what they think should be there on social media. And this is a good place beyond even looking at your own product to see what are people saying about this product online, or if you want to, for example, you want to work on a case study to improve a particular aspect of an app. So for me, I use the YouVersion Bible app a lot, and I've been having issues with the experience recently, and so I searched on Twitter what other people were saying to see maybe it's only me that had the problem, and I saw that other people were also having the same issue. So that is like a very, even just a personal, I wasn't trying to do a project around the WD case study or anything, but that's just a way that you can think about using social media to see what issues people are having with your product. And even if you're trying to work on a case study, but you don't know what to even do, like you don't have any ideas yet, that's a good way to find those ideas to say maybe an app that you already use, or even if it's an app that you don't use, check on Twitter, check on Facebook, check on Instagram. What are people saying about this app? What features are people complaining about? What features are people requesting to be added to the app? And then you can build a project around that instead of saying, oh, I'm going to redesign this whole app. Because when you're creating your case studies, you have to think about the people who are looking at the case studies. Those are hiring managers and recruiters. If in a work setting, the chances of getting a redesign done, like entire redesign of an app, very low, because there are many other things that need to be done. So recruiters and hiring managers don't really want to be seeing if all your case studies are about how you're going to redesign an entire app. That's not very convincing to the hiring manager and the recruiter, because it doesn't show value that they can add immediately. It doesn't show that you're thinking about the constraints of the team. So you need to think about those kinds of things as you're creating your case studies. So social media helps you get insights on what people like about a product, what things they wish the product had, their experience, what they love, what they hate about it. And as more and more people are getting more aware about UX and user experience and all of these things, even people who are not in tech use these terms when they are describing their experience. So you can just search the UX of blank, whatever app, the UX of this, UX of that, and search for it on Twitter, and you will see what people are talking about. And that can give you guidance on where you need to focus to do more primary research on. And somebody mentioned Google reviews, which brings me to the next thing, which is App Store reviews. If you're on a team or you're a freelancer and you're not looking at the App Store reviews of the product that you're working on, if there is an app, then you're missing out on a lot of valuable insights. People complain, people leave complaints, they leave compliments, they leave questions, they leave suggestions, they leave all kinds of things on App Store reviews. So if you're working on a product that has a mobile app and you're not, you should be looking at the App Store reviews. If you're looking for ideas on what case studies to work on, to build your portfolio, look at apps or reviews for apps that you use, or just things that you're interested in, and you find ideas for like new features that people want or problem areas that people are having. You can see like people, if somebody is asking that they want a particular new feature to be added to an app, and it's not just one person, you're seeing many comments like that, or even combining with social media search as well, you're seeing all of those things that can give you ideas of things that you can start to explore. And then for B2B products that may not have mobile apps, you can also check out review sites. There are sites that review the enterprise apps where people can compare alternatives to products and see. And so you can see those people have already done that kind of competitive analysis for you as well. That feature comparison competitive analysis is already done. So you can go for that to look at what are the like the the insights behind that. Like what does that mean for you? Do people actually want this? Because why competitive analysis is not, why a feature comparison competitive analysis is not the best way to make decisions is that you're just copying what somebody else is doing and you don't know why they're doing it. You don't know if it's successful for them. So you're like, oh, this competitor has an app and that one has an app, so maybe we should also build an app. But you don't know if the app usage numbers is low You don't know if people are actually using the app. You don't know what led to that thought process, or maybe there was even if there was even any thought process in building that app, and then you're just going to copy it and waste your time and resources. I didn't mention any websites. Like they're just websites. If you Google, it's like alternatives to this app. You see lots of websites that do those comparisons for both consumer products and business products as well. Then another good source for secondary research is desk research. And this is basically like going online, like do a Google search, reviewing research from various publications and sources. If you're working in UX, you should be familiar with Nielsen Norman Group. And that's a very good place to find research on user behavior, user preferences, user need, benchmarking reports, those kinds of things. There's Measuring You, Nielsen Norman, the Baymard Institute, and then you have tech companies like Meta, Microsoft, Google, Spotify, and even smaller tech companies. They post case studies and best practices based on the research that they do, and you see that they have like a Medium or on their own company website. So these are also ways of doing secondary research, and sometimes it may not be focused on UX. Like if you look at things like go into academic research like human computer interaction, social psychology, people are publishing research that you can access for free on the internet around VR, AR, voice, different parts of the interaction, how to build your apps. Like there's best practices that come from academic research and even research in tech companies that can help you in thinking about, oh, how do we actually build this thing, or what should we build, or what should I work on in my case study, for my portfolio, even if I'm not yet working full time, I'm looking for a job, or even as a freelancer for your client projects, right? Looking at what does the academic data say, what does research say about how to approach this, right? And then your desk research can be internal. If you're working for a team or for a client, you can ask them about the previous research they've done in the company and look through that, because that's also a valuable source of insight. It can give you direction of, oh, we did this research that time, this didn't work, maybe we can try this instead. And then another secondary source is internal sources. So beyond the desk research, and this may not really apply for people who are, as most of you are searching for jobs or freelancing, but if you're working with a team, working with your customer facing teams is also a very good source of getting insights, secondary sources. So this can be customer support, marketing, sales, or any other team that interacts with users in some way, and asking those people for feedback. What are the customers that they're talking to saying? What are the things that they're complaining about? What features are they requesting for? And this can give you insights into what direction to do research in, to be able to validate the need, the assumptions, and all of those kinds of things. Not validate, I don't like saying the word validate, but to test your assumptions, to research the needs, and so on. And then if you're also, this is also more applicable to people who are working in-house, you can create an internal research panel. One of the most difficult parts of research is recruiting, like finding people to talk to. And I count this to be secondary sources because they are not necessarily your target audience. They're kind of. So for example, if you work in a store that if you work in a company that creates an app for pet owners to manage their pet schedule or whatever, if you have colleagues who have pets, then you can use them as participants in your research. I wouldn't recommend using these people as the primary source of insights because they're too close to the product that you're building, but they're also a good place to get exploratory insights about the needs, experiences, the app, the challenges, and so on, that you can then use to explore with other people outside of your organization. Cool. So let me take a look at the questions before I go into the next part. So I'm saying, does secondary research always come before primary research? Yes and no. So you can just go ahead and do primary research, but especially when you're working in-house, I think that it makes sense to always start with secondary research because you need to see what already exists within, what insights, data, facts you already know within the company based on research that has been done previously. before you go ahead and then start doing primary research. Because I've been in situations where somebody comes to me to say, oh, I want to do a research project around this. And then I go and search our research repository and I see that the answers are already there. So it would have been a waste of time for me to then go ahead and start doing that project from scratch when the answer already existed. Or you might find that you have parts of the answer already, but you don't have other parts of the answer. And then you can focus the research on the other parts that you don't have already. So it's in some way, yes, secondary research should always come before primary research because it helps you like not waste time on things that you already know. It helps you know where to focus your primary research on. So I would say yes to that. I've taken a course on UI UX, but I realize I'm not so good at or interested in the design part. Is it possible to focus on user experience only? And what's the growth chances in that field? Okay, I'll come to this at the end of the session. Okay, so are there any other questions around what I've covered so far before I go into the next part of the talk? All right, cool. There doesn't seem to be any other question. So now, if once you've done all these things, you've looked at your secondary sources, you've looked at your app store reviews, your customer support tickets, all of those things, the next thing is, so what do you do next? Now you have all these things. So, and like I've said, before we go into what you know, like I've said multiple times already, secondary research does not replace primary research. It's a starting point. When you're not sure what you want to do, when you're not sure what questions to ask, when you're not sure what part of the project to focus on, or when you're having difficulty getting buy-in from your stakeholders. So whether that's your client or your team about doing research, secondary research is a good place to start to help you fill in those gaps. So what do you do next? You need to synthesize, like the same way with primary research, you need to synthesize. You also need to synthesize with secondary research. Yeah, so the same way you synthesize with primary research, you also have to synthesize with secondary research, and you need to categorize your findings. So let's say, for example, you're looking at apps or reviews and social media. So you need to take all of those things and tag them in some way, categorize them. So you can say feature requests or customer complaints or usability issue or discoverability issue. So for example, if you're seeing people say, oh, does this product have a feature that in this product, can you send money to your friends? But you have that feature, and these are users of your product asking if you have that feature, then you know that there's a discoverability problem. People are not finding something that exists within the app, and that so you just think of whatever framing makes sense for the product that you're working on. So it could be customer complaints, it could be feature requests, it could be discoverability issues, it could be usability issues, it could be whatever way that makes sense for you to categorize what you're finding and find the common themes across what you're seeing. And then that leads you to sharing. If you're, whether you're freelancing or you're trying to create case studies for your first portfolio or you're working with a team, you need to share what you're finding with your team. There's no point if you keep everything to yourself, then like what's the point? What are you going to use it to do? So quantify the things that you can. So if you're looking at feature requests, if you've taken all of those insights that you've gotten from your secondary research and you're saying that, oh, if from looking at social media searches in the past year and app store reviews in the past year, there were 100 feature requests. 30% of those feature requests were for this specific feature. That's quantifying, and that's very helpful for teams because a lot of time, especially product teams, they like to see more numbers. There's a whole different conversation about like the value of qualitative data and how just listening to one person can be enough sometimes. There's a thing that somebody that I follow, Jared Paul, says that if there's a ditch in the road, you don't need to see 400 people fall into that ditch to know that you need to fix it. If only one person falls inside, then you know that this is a problem. So it's not every time that you need to have 100% of people and talk to 10,000 people. Sometimes one person saying something can be enough, but that's a different topic. But yeah, wherever you can quantify things that you're seeing from your secondary sources, then do that. So you can come up with things like, oh, in the past quarter, 1 in 4 customer complaints were about the account creation process, things like that. So that helps you show your team like, oh, this is a big problem. And then you can even then link it back to that first competitive analysis thing I showed you. So like the feature request example, if you see like, oh, 30% of the feature requests that we saw in the past year on social media and in the app reviews were for this particular feature, which all our competitors have. So that gives you more that, oh, this is a thing that we should actually build, or we should consider building, or do more research around whether we need to build it, because competitors have it and our customers are asking for it. So that's better than, oh, competitors have it, so we should build it. Then prioritize. So of course you find many things, and from quantifying, that's one way to kind of prioritize, and checking the severity of the problem, like the ditch, like if it's a big problem, even if it's one person that has talked about it, but you've seen that it's a big problem, then you can still work with your product manager or whoever to prioritize the things that you found from these secondary sources. So how relevant is it to your business goal? What is the potential reward? Is it low effort, high reward? Is it high effort, low reward? Should we actually work on this? Are we losing users or customers because this feature is not there that people have been requesting for, that competitors have? Are customers frustrated about something and constantly complaining about it to the customer support team? So you prioritize what to work on with your team. So this is not something that you do on your own. And then finally, you have to act. Sometimes the action is not in your hand. So for example, if you're not working and you're just trying to create your case studies for your portfolio, your action is to create that case study, right? If you're freelancing, your action is to present your recommendations or whatever to the team that you're working, to your clients. That's if you're not actually like building the screens. If it's not something that you have to do, so that maybe the PM has to do or somebody else has to do, where it's possible, where you can directly make that change yourself, then you can go ahead and do it. Like if you're the designer and you've seen that, oh, we need to improve this flow, there's a part of the flow that people don't understand, or there's something on this screen that people don't understand, you can change that immediately. When you've prioritized that with your PM, then go ahead and do that. Sometimes you need to do more research. Okay, we found this, but we're still not sure, maybe we should spend energy and time on this, so we need to do more research around this, and that can be your next step as well. And yeah, that's it for today. Any other questions so far?
All right, thank you very much. Yes, let's throw. I have amazing audience
I'm seeing
today.
some
Let's throw
questions
into
in the sorry, I'm seeing
let's
some
throw in
questions in the
those.
Q&A parts. So let me address those ones first. Can secondary
Okay.
research be enough, especially for someone who has no experience and is just doing a project to put in the portfolio? So your portfolio is not just one case study. So it's okay. I personally think that if you have a good enough, like you can show a good story through secondary research alone, then you can include that as a case study. Like that, because you have other things that you're showing. And it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're looking for UX research jobs, that's fine. But if you're looking for UX design, like UI design or product design jobs, that may not be okay to just have only secondary research without any other thing, like maybe the screens that you designed based on the secondary research, or the feature ideas that you have based on secondary research, and how you would build that out, right? So you can't just you can't just end there, which is what I talked about. Like you need to do something next, and that could be presenting those insights, or suggesting features, ideas based on the insights that you've gathered, or talking about the kind of primary research you would do next, or doing that primary research actually next, and then creating your screens, your updated designs, or whatever. Do engagement metrics like clicks, views? Oh, Don says he was asking based on the research aspect of the project. So yes, you could do that. I mentioned it, like sometimes you can actually just go ahead and take action with insights from secondary sources, because especially when it's low risk and it's a low risk situation, so you can actually just go ahead and do that. But it depends on what the project is and what you're trying to do. And since that's not the only case study that you have, then it should be fine. But then also you want to show effort. So it shows that you're putting in more effort if you go beyond the secondary research, where you go and say, based on these things that I found from secondary research, I then did this primary research, and showing the link between the two is very helpful. Do engagement metrics like clicks, views time spent, comments, and shares fall under secondary sources when making product decisions. So yes, I would say so. Some people, so if you have like access to analytic tools, and this if you're not freelancing or working in-house, you may not have access to those the analytics for the product that you're trying to explore. And why I don't want to focus on analytic tools here is because you can also do secondary research for something that is not live yet. Like you want to create something new, you can also start with secondary research for those kinds of things to see what people have done in that problem space as